In this video, we're going to extend our knowledge of functions by looking at using arguments to solve a couple of different kinds of problems that we would normally address using functions. One is to take some data and modify it, and the other is to get an answer to a question that we might need repeatedly. So we'll start out by looking at modifying some data. Let's say I wanted to be able to take any string and change it so it looked like it was being said by Elmer Fudd. So I have a function called fuddify that does that. Be very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. And this function will take that string and modify it. Be very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits. And I can put in any string. You screwy rabbit. And it will give it back to me. Wabbit twax. So by having this function, I don't have to write the lines of code that would do the processing on that string over and over again. All I need to do is write the name of the function and then pass it all the different strings that I want. So how does that work? Let's take a look at the definition of this fuddify function. Here it is. So I have the word function and then the name of it, fuddify. And then inside the parentheses, I have what's called an argument or a parameter. And this is just a variable that in the context of this function will be known without my having to define it separately. So I'm passing in a string called speech. At least that's what we expect. So the first line is to check to make sure that it's actually a string. And if it isn't, just returning this error message. Nice try, wabbit. Otherwise, we process this variable, speech, by making some changes to it and then returning it. And that's what it's called in a function when you take that data and you pass it back out. So it can be in the JavaScript console just printed, but in your code, you would assign a variable to the contents of this function like this. So if I wanted to process a string immediately and assign it to a variable, I could do it this way. Utterance is my variable, and I'm going to assign it to fuddify, you screwy rabbit. So let's try that over here. And then I can check the value of utterance. And there it is, you squewy wabbit. So that's how that works. And just so you can see here, we're using the replace method on this string to take a regular expression, which is just the character R, and replacing it with W. And this takes lowercase r's and replaces them with lowercase w's. And then we do it again for uppercase r's and uppercase w's. It's very simple. So that's how you can take data and process it using a function. And then the other main case for which you'll be using functions at the beginning would be to answer a question that you need the answer to over and over again. So for example, we know that we can determine whether a number is odd by using the modulus operator. So 12 mod 2, for example, returns 0. And that's how we know that the number is even. But if you don't want to type something like this, if you don't want to use this operator, if you'd rather have it expressed in plain English, you could have a function called isOdd, for example, and pass it a number. So in your code, if you have the need to answer this question over and over again, it could be more readable to define a very simple function that basically does this on a number that you pass in as an argument. So what does the isOdd function look like? Let's take a look. Here it is. Once again, we have function, and then the name of the function, and here's the argument in parentheses. And then we can say if this number, mod 2, is 0, then the number is even. So we would return false. So the answer to the question, is this odd, would be no. Otherwise, return true. Very simple, but it can be nice to express this question using a function name instead of using a mathematical expression. So now we've seen two ways that functions can come in immediately handy when you're working with your JavaScript. One is to process data and return back the modified version, and the other is to package up a way to ask a question and get back an answer to it over and over again.